You definitely have to have a good sense of humor to do my job. Don't worry about embarrassing yourself.
You definitely have to be a people person. Being able to create that small talk that really can change someone's day is something that is definitely needed for this position.
To work here, you got to be fast and efficient. You don't want to take up too much of their time, but you don't want to make them feel rushed.
You can start off not knowing anything, and they give you all the skills and all the training and everything that you need, all the tools that you need to get really into it and getting situated and knowing what you're doing. Well, the day here flies by. You come in, you clock in, and the very next thing you're going home and you can't believe you're already leaving. And the best part is, if you're not closing, you get to stay after and ride the rides anyway.
My favorite part of working in games and working for Six Flags is talking on the microphone and interacting with the guests.
So you got the microphone and everything, you're talking on the mic, and people are all happy and smiling, rolling, and getting prizes and everything. Basically having fun all day, and getting paid for it.
Singing, dancing in front of them, it's the most fun you could ever have.
You have to hype them up. You have to get them excited. You have to let them know, you know what I mean? This is a game. They're here to have fun. They're here to get excited and play these games and win these games and take home these prizes and remember it for the rest of their life that they came and they were a winner today. It truly does make you happy to see somebody else happy and know that you're the one who did it for them. Some of the perks working here would definitely be getting to get in free. We get discounts on a lot of great stuff. It's a lot of fun, and just being in the environment when you're not even here makes it that much more awesome.
We always have those extra things that supervisors do.
You can get cash on the spot, mantra money. If somebody catches you doing the right thing, or if a guest's noticed you doing the right thing and they want to mention it because it's that commendable, they definitely reward you nicely for it.
Everyone's so friendly and nice, and it's such a great work environment.
Each department that you go into, no matter what it is, there should never be any hesitation because you will always find yourself fitting in perfectly with your own little family.
As a student, it's the perfect job. They help me with my school schedule. They're so flexible and helping me out.
The application process is definitely the easiest part. They walk you step by step how you get to contact somebody and how you can get hired.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 4 of Some Great Adventures, the podcast where 3 old buddies who met and worked for a significant amount of time at Six Flags Great Adventure, located in Jackson, New Jersey, chat about our time at the park. I am Steve Hicks, and as always, my co-hosts are
Scott Loudon
and
Chris Peluso.
There you go. Our podcast continues to be made possible by our friends at the Share Universe Podcast Studio. Today, behind the scenes, we have Ming Chen helping us out. Look them up on Facebook or the direct website if you have any interest in podcasting. They are the absolute best. Today, we have not one, but 2 very special guest hosts joining us. The first is my old buddy who was with me during our black and red tag days and Western rides, because screw you, Scott, West is best. And
all right.
Then he was my partner for a few years as a co-supervisor in both the west and the east sections of the park. And then my fellow full-timer in the games department, my buddy, Andy Auletti. Say hi to nice people, Andy.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Hey, everybody.
Hey, Andy. And then the second person that is co-hosting, we're bringing into this time. I met this person during my time in games. In all honesty, she was actually probably my favorite, if not one of my actual favorite people from all of the games employees that me and Andy were in charge of. And I'm very pleased to say that after I left the park, I completely didn't know and found out she started dating co-host Chris Peluso, and then they got married. So there you go. So welcome everybody to the awesome Sam Peluso. How you doing?
Hello.
Would have really sucked if you didn't like her.
I know, right? Right? So we always like to kick off when we have guest hosts, kind of like we did in the first episode, have them talk about how they started at the park, when they started, their history, and basically when they ended and why. Why did they leave the park? So we're going to kick it off with Andy. Andy, how the hell did you end up being at Six Flags?
Well, let's see.
Lost
I
the bet.
actually have the honor of being the only 15-year-old to ever work in the rides department. So
that is crazy.
Yep. Yeah, I got that job actually never even knowing about working there. My father knew at the time, the manager of operations there, Joe LaGravinus, and he told me to come on down and meet him, and told him I wanted rides, and when you know the manager, you get what you want. So I wound up as a 15-year-old in rides at the wonderful paddle boats in the western section, and just happened to be lucky enough to land in the best section of the park.
That's right.
Yep.
Digs just keep on coming.
So,
Okay.
yeah, that was 1987 I started. And I knew a few of you guys. My brother Dominic, you guys remember him? He started there also the year before me. So I'd met a few people there, and I was real excited to start working there. So until I found out what I was going to be doing all day on that freaking paddleboat dock, wearing these long pants, roasting all day. Yeah, so that was an interesting place to work in the park. But
hey, hold on. They brought you in at 15 and let you work at paddle boats. I got screwed. They actually, I had to do grounds at 15, and they put me at paddle boats at 16. So I did that. Me and you really have a linear path, because I spent my first time in rides at paddle boats. But I had already done a whole year in grounds. So I really got screwed, man.
Well, I guess they figured at 15 I wasn't gonna, kill anybody on the paddle boats. So
True.
they let me work there.
True.
And but it was cool. Got to pretty much hang out with the log flume crew all the time. We were your neighbors, and it had days where it was pretty fun just hanging out there by the water and riding around the paddle boat docks and driving out to Switlick on the boats and things out. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So and then I stayed mostly in 120 my whole time there. I worked cables. After that, when I turned 16, I was allowed to work a real ride. So I went over to Western Cables. I think I was there for one season. Then went over to Mine Train, and that's where I got lead. I was lead at Mine Train for 2 or 3 seasons. Then that was like 1988, 89ish, I'm guessing.
That's the real years at Mine Train too. That's when that ride was a ride. Yeah. 3 trains, hard to run. Yeah, you had to know what you were doing.
Yeah, that was fun. Those were fun summers. Like all of us were leads this summer. You had a lot from New Brian.
Yep.
Tony was at Western Cables. Me and Gretchen were at the Mine Train.
Yep.
And so that was it was a really cool group of little rides, and everybody who we worked with there, I really enjoyed that. Those were some great summers.
Absolutely.
Now, was paddle boats free, or did you have to pay?
No, you had to pay.
No. Paddle boats was an upcharge,
But
So it was
it was not an attraction because that didn't exist yet. We weren't out to screw people yet. So.
They didn't have a name for it. They were just like, we want more money, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we actually had to go to cash control and learn how to do the bank and the register, all that stuff there. So I guess.
And we were in charge of the fish food feeders, which and also wouldn't be ours
fish
later.
Food was like the cash business. It was like they gave you like a bunch of quarters and you made change and you brought this big bag of money back at the end of the day, But we had to keep filling up the fish food machines and emptying the quarters out of the machines, and paddle boats had a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, I'm not going to say the name, but there was one supervisor during those years who, if somebody did a good job, he'd be like, "You're going to come empty the fish feeders with me," and he would just fill your pockets with quarters, like $15 in quarters in your pockets.
No, that was total cash. There was no way to keep it on food. So, and
it was underneath Best of the West, under that little like railing area, right up against the river, so nobody could see what was going on anyway. This is pre-camera days, so literally anything that went under there, like you could do a drug deal under there, no one would know. Like it was all hidden. Not saying you did that, Andy. I'm just saying you could.
No. But I may have, taken a lot of free fish food and spend my days just feeding fish all day.
Me too.
That was one of my favorite things as a supervisor of 120. You get those moments where everything was working out great, everything was running fine, and you maybe just go chill over by the lake for a little bit, watch the log flume run, feed some fish, enjoy the sun. It was nice.
Yeah. Wait for the fireworks.
Yeah. So what year? I think we were at the area trainer phase after that short-lived position. So I was the 120 area trainer for like half a season, and then was promoted to 120 supervisor. And at the time, it was me, and Rich Genone and Sue Heekin.
Yep.
So they were the ones who trained me over there how to be a supervisor. My supervisors, that I had worked under were Gary Joseph and Bruce Ball and Bill Daly.
Oh my
So
God.
those guys, yeah.
I forgot about Bruce Ball. Holy cow,
Yeah.
I love Bruce. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they were always good to us. That section ran well for, it had the tradition of running real well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we kept that going, and I worked with them 1 or 2 seasons. Then things got moved around a bit. That's when you came over, and then it was me and you for like 2 seasons there alone.
Yeah.
We never had a third. We had a rotating third.
Yep.
Yep. And then I think, what year did we wind up in 160?
Yeah, because the 120 project came in. We decided not to do that.
Oh, God.
So
The 120
yeah.
project. It was like
Well,
we got evicted from our home.
We did. It's funny. I actually reached out to some of them this weekend because I'd really like to do a podcast and just talk about it, because it's kind of funny. So like right now, like your reaction was my reaction in episode 1 when I first talked about it and talked about my history. But it's really funny because as I've been thinking about it more and more over the last like 4 months, I think I've changed my whole mind to it. And I'm like, it kind of actually makes sense if you take a step back and look at what they were trying to do. I just don't know if they were in the right time to try to do that. You know what I mean? And I would love to really just break down, like, what was their mentality? Like, what were they looking to do? And if that had been successful in 120, how are they ever going to spread that out to the other sections? Like one section at a time each year? Or were they just going to try to give it, like everybody was going to get it? Like, that's it? Like, it was going to be park wide? Yeah, like, it's an interesting thing to really talk about. So it's kind of funny because my instinct from the history of when we were there is always like, I would never want to be part of that. But now when I think about the park, I want to know about it. So I'm hoping some of them might want to come on the podcast and talk about it, but we'll see.
Food.
Well, the biggest thing I thought,
Foods was absolutely part of it. Foods, grounds, rides.
That was the deal breaker.
It wasn't because merch and shows bowed out and they wouldn't go into it, but rides, grounds, and foods did, if I'm remembering right. I know shows definitely did not, and I think merch got out of it as well.
That's the deal breaker for me. Foods is brutal. Yeah. Yeah, it's just so much different world than.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Chris. One thing I learned is every department, we all had a great adventure culture, but then every department had kind of their own little subculture, and they ran great on their own. But when we tried to put them all together, they're just too different.
Foods carries with it the food. That's a whole different animal, and retail. Another animal that's totally different than rides and grounds. Yeah, now
well, even games. Games, we all learned that. Games is very different,
Exactly. So there, at least you just have the retail aspect, but yeah, food, whoa. You go home with a lot of sick people, man, if you got a free-for-all operator serving burgers. You know what I mean? Like, that's some scary shit. I can't believe they did that. But
I mean,
or how about, we'd have somebody in ground cleaning the bathroom and then we put them in the kitchen.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
What, you're cleaning tables for short staff? Get in the kitchen and go cook the food. No time to wash your hands. Get in there.
Oh, that's good.
So we went over the 160 together, and then did you go straight from where did you go after that? You didn't go straight into games?
I went back
did you?
No, I went back to 120 after
that's
160.
And I stayed in 160.
Over there for it was the original season that they opened Adventure Rivers. We were there, I think, which was maybe 1990, I want to guess. And I think the following summer also. And then you stayed, and I went back to 120.
That's exactly right. You went back to 120. I stayed with Gary and Scott, and then we both moved into games. Well, you moved into games first,
right? Because that's eventually where I finally wound up. And that, what year was that? Maybe 98 or 97.
Well, 97 was my year there. Did you go? Were you in the exact same year, or that's what I thought? You were there a year before me, right?
Yeah. I left at the end of a season. So at the end of, say, the 96 season, I had done the whole year with operations. And then in the fall,
that's what I thought.
And that's when I went over.
Yep.
So I was there for a whole winter first before I had my actual first season in games.
That's what I thought. So you were 90,
so,
winter of 96.
I had, like everybody else, every other person to ride, sitting around waiting forever for someone to die or move away or something for our job to open up. because they never did.
Nope.
And
Nope.
you know, obviously, you know, that's what we were all trying to do. But the opportunity opened up in games first, and I already knew Denise, and you know, I thought that would be cool to go over there and try that and work with her. So that's how I wound up over there. You know, it was a full-time job. It finally was getting, you know, some medical benefits and stuff.
Yeah.
Probably, you know, like maybe 23, 24 years old. And,
Yeah,
I
you can
felt
finally
like an
get
old
that
man.
knee taken care
I'm a
of.
grown-up now. I got a full-time job at Great Adventure. And I'm enjoying it.
So I'm curious because I knew I would never be a full-timer. I never had the skills, but what do you do as a full-timer in the winter? Like, what happens then? I picture just a lot of like hanging out, partying, and like, you know, having a good time. Or
I feel like, well, I don't know if every department is doing the same thing.
I was
like
going to say,
mostly worked on like
department.
budgeting stuff, and
Right.
you know, I did a lot of work with like the gaming license applications and that kind of stuff. You know, inspections. You know, we had to do like business plans for the following season. That was a big deal. Like we worked on that kind of like all the time. Oh, you gotta get your business plan, do your business plan. And then I was again feel like some, you know, 23-year-old kid standing up trying to explain to the president of Park how we were going to spend, you know, this $20 million that they gave us.
That's a good question. Food's found a way to keep me working 70 hours a week. You know, I don't badmouth Foods. I just lay out the facts.
Winter time?
I lay out the facts. That's all. And I know up until December, I was still there was some Chamber of Commerce bullshit catering that I had to do. And somehow I still managed to get 70 hours a week, not my 2 days off every day. That was, you know.
And you were
like
salary,
I
right?
I'll let that speak for itself, though. You know, so I went from 90 to 100 hours a week to 70. You know, so that's a little improvement, but yeah.
I'm wondering for those that can see this live, I'm wondering if Min could put that sucker graphic over your head right now.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think I made under minimum wage when I worked in food service.
Because the hours,
if you do the math, under minimum wage. Yeah.
Sorry, Chris, but that was always my department. I'd work any department in that place, but I had to draw the line at food.
I said the same thing. Never foods.
Nothing against the foods people, just couldn't do it.
No, definitely not. Just the nature. Nature of the business.
Oh my God.
So Andy, what made you leave?
Well, I should have. If I made could make real money working, I would have loved to have done that job my whole life. It was a very fun place to work, but you know, historically, the pay there kind of is under the market rate. So yeah. So you know, I got married. I had to, you know, we wanted to buy a house. Had to start making some better money, and when I realized, you know how ridiculous the salaries they were offering us there were, I ventured out, and that's when I went actually started working with Scott. And you came over there shortly too. It's like I feel like honestly 85-90% of the jobs I've held my whole life have been, Steve, with you.
I know. It's true. It's totally true.
So great.
I'm sorry for your loss, Andy.
Totally true.
Yeah, so that was it. I just left, and I've been, man, you know, they gave me like a bonus and everything at Great Adventure. And I'm still, this other place wants to give me a job with something I don't even have any experience doing, but like so much more than that, you know, kind of a no-brainer. So that's when I left. So I think 97, maybe 98, I was my last year there. I think I did 12 or 13 seasons total.
Yeah, yours was 98 because you started the season after I left. I left 97. I only did that 1 year in games, and then I got my position got downsized there, and then they offered me a full-time position in foods, and I was like, no. That was it. I left. I know you came back, but I don't think did you finish 98? I didn't think you even finished the season. I thought you only went back for like partial seasons.
No, I left probably mid-season.
That's what I thought.
Because you were there for like a second when I came over. I was like, oh shit, Andy's over here.
I barely remembered you were there, Chris.
I was like,
when you left the Foods, you know. But then I was like, oh yeah, that's right, Chris did work in games.
All right, cool. All right.
Games was very different, but it was fun. There were a lot of cool people in
definitely.
games too.
Yeah, I enjoy games.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, obviously from the opening segment that we put on of this podcast this month, we're going to delve into games for sure. That's also why, as I pass it off to our next co-host, we brought on Sam, because Sam has a little bit of a difference. All of us were other departments that went into games, but Sam, you were a games person. Now, I don't know your history though, so I don't know if you actually started in games. I don't know what your history in the park was at all. So I only knew you from '97, my last year in games. So passing off to you, how did you start? When did you start?
I started in '96. I had just moved to New Jersey from California. I was following my family who had just moved. My mother was working in guest relations at the time and nudging me. You really should work at Great Adventure. And of course, that's all I want to do is work with my mother in college. So, I was like, all right, well, I just won't work in her department. So I applied thinking, I'm going to get into rides. I'm going to run the bobsled because that was my favorite ride growing up. And, I learned it didn't even exist anymore.
I was just thinking,
That's what I thought. My mom never discouraged that. She works in guest relations. She knew it wasn't there. But no, go play the ride. Where you run the ride you want.
This is where we need that sound effect. Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, that's what I said.
For the second time, Ming is putting the sucker thing over.
Yeah. He's like, all right, I'll take my second choice. Give me Ultra Twister.
So it was going to be Rolling Thunder. I was going to work in rides, and Rolling Thunder was there when I was a kid. So I was like, okay, that's kind of exciting, And then, when you get hired, you have to go to medical to get cleared. And, that's when I shared that, I had a bad back. And for some reason, that person in medical thought, oh, well, you're going to have to go to another department. And games was one of those options, which is crazy because in games, you carry like so many pounds of money and prizes,
I'm just
way more than you in bags over your head. But yeah, so I
just want to put out there were plenty of rides you could have done with a bad back. I'm just
yes. Yeah.
I think about all the people we had working rides. There were some people,
swings perhaps.
I mean, it wasn't there either, but paddle boats. You would have been perfect for paddle boats,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I went to games, and I had quite the first day. On my way to the boardwalk area, I saw Tweety pass out in the back area. I was like, hey, Tweety! And, they're always with their little attendants and like, hello. And all of a sudden I hear a thump. I look back, I'm like, oh.
That's awesome.
Just go, man. I'm like, all right. So I showed up to the boardwalk. I remember my first supervisor was Omar, and bless his heart, he was so nice to me because I think I'm in the that game Super Hooper where you throw the little hula hoop over the box with the little dog on it. Yeah. I couldn't have been in there longer than 20 minutes, and all of a sudden I'm like, I call him over. I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel really sick. And I spent the next 30 minutes throwing up in medical. So I went home on my first day.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. And thankfully, when I came back for my second day, I still had a job and everyone was nice to me. My mom still worked in guest relations. And of course, a few months later, embarrassed me to no end. I came home from work to find my dad was on a business trip. So my mom's like, oh, I'll have everyone over. And again, a party at Great Adventure is never small unless relations because there's so few of them. But they're managed to still be quite the circle of people. And I'll never forget, I walk in, I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. And there was a guy that worked in guest relations. I won't say his name, but I had such a crush on him. Oh my God. And my mom has no alcohol tolerance whatsoever. She's probably still working on her first glass. She's tipsy and she's like, my daughter has a crush on you as I walk in the door. And I'm mortified because not only am I, completely embarrassed, but he's sitting right next to his absolutely stunning fiance. So I walked out.
Yeah,
and
that probably worked
really
out
talked to
okay.
the guest relations people too much unless I was handling
She skipped right over that, Andy. She's like, no, it didn't.
I just figured it out.
You did figure it out, yes.
I always wanted to know, like, what drives somebody to work at guest relations. Like, I want to listen to people rant and rave and yell at me all day. Like, I think I'll get a job at guest relations because I like that. I mean,
Right. They
why does
did
anyone do
pay
that?
a little bit more than us, I believe. At least the games people. Guest relations made more, but games made nothing. So
It's probably like an extra dime.
Yeah, I know.
Here's your hazard pay.
Kick an extra dime.
But yeah, so my whole time at Great Adventure was in games. You know, like as a black tag non-management, I spent a lot of time where Scott was up at flight deck, and you know, moved my way up into management. Oh, the good flight deck days. Yeah, that was a prime spot because you were operating a ride that was an attraction. But for games people, we were like, yeah, we get to operate something.
So,
And,
you know, I just want to point out, because Steve said in the beginning that you were his favorite games person that worked for him. But Steve, I just want to point out that, like, I was a games person for like a week that worked for you. Like,
I don't know if he's retracting his statement.
Let's be honest.
I died a little on the inside.
If you were my favorite, would I really have brought you to games? Come on.
No, not there, yeah.
I pretty much sabotaged your career in one season. Come on, you know.
Well, you were like the mother hen that like pushed me to the edge of the nest to get out. Like, you know, here, Scott's not ready to leave completely. Let's just bring him the games and give him that final nudge to leave the nest.
Let's be quite honest. That was a revolving door, because then at the end of that season, you were the mother hen pushing me to get the hell out of the park. So it still worked out best for both of us, right? I mean,
Well,
I thought they
that was
downsized.
kind of one of the problems, you know. Like here we are. I didn't ever just realize like how many of these operations people got like shoved into games within like a 1 or 2 year period, and that's why everybody was so pissed off at us.
Well, Sam, I don't know if you were done yet, but I have a big question for you that Andy just kind of lit the fuse to. So you know, in the early '90s, there was this really popular wrestling storyline called the NWO, and it was where these wrestlers came from one wrestling association, WWE, and they invaded the other one, and everybody that watched it loved it, but everybody else hated it because they were the bad guys. They were the invaders, right? They were the New World Order. This is 4 New World Order members right here that invaded the games area and immediately took full-time positions. Yeah. One person only took a seasonal, but even that, I'm sure, pissed somebody off because, like you said, while we looked at, you know, the flight simulator, Max Flight Simulators is like, oh, it's just a small little attraction. Like you said, games people actually liked it. So if you could get a supervisor's pay and be sitting in there in the AC, you're probably pretty happy chilling out in the right stuff area. And we fucked all those people over by taking those positions. So you, being a games person, how hated were we? Like, that's my question.
You know, like the rides people, like you, I mean, look, we all understand people come to the park for the rides mostly. And I think part of the problem is that all the rides people didn't just know that, but they flaunted it. It was like, yeah, I'm a ride. I always kind of felt like the ride people kind of like they were the smartest people too, because they were allowed to operate the rides. There was like a snootiness a little bit.
Yeah, we were definitely not the smartest people, but yeah, I know you're coming.
We were snooty. We were definitely not smart. Yeah, I agree with that.
But yeah, like, you know, we would have little feuds with you guys. Like, you know, at the end of the night, the rides people would sweep the area around the ride, you know, and they would get mad at the games people. Like, what are you guys doing standing around? We're sweeping your area, but you know we have things to do too, you know. But you know, like, I personally, my big beef was with grounds, but that's a whole.
You know, I mean, that explains a lot. Like, so, like, why I felt the love when I came to games. Like, nobody there liked me.
No,
I mean, it's not unusual for people not to like me, obviously. But
like, and you had Sky Coaster too. You had the two only attractions in games.
But I was like a refugee because, like the games people hated me. And then, like, the rides people treated me like Simple Bob because I'm no longer a rides person. They're like, you know, giving me shit. I'm like, I was a ride soup 5 minutes ago, and you're giving me crap. Like, what the hell? Like, give me a little professional courtesy here. They're like, oh, let me explain it to you in a way that you'll understand. I'll use small words. Like, what the hell? Sorry.
I will say though, you did get, Sam is not wrong. Like you got one of my favorite things in that entire year I was in games was me and Andy would walk over to fucking Daredevil Die. We'd walk over to Sky Coaster and be like, test ride. That was every day.
The Sky Coaster was pretty cool.
Yep.
Oh my God, it was so fun. That was my favorite thing, man. So, you know.
That didn't help you, Scott. Mm-mm.
Yeah, well, I only think I rode the Sky Coaster one time, and that was when you, Steve, me, and Gary rode it. And that was the only time I rode it. But that was before I came to games. So, you know, I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
Well, what was it like working in a little simulator thing? I mean,
that sucked. I mean, don't get me wrong. The simulators themselves were pretty badass. I mean, it was like a flight simulator where you can actually like clock some cockpit time. That was cool. But whoever designed those damn things should have been like, you know, whipped and beaten because it was so stupid. There was like 2 buttons. And if you pushed the one button before the other one, you crashed, like the thing would go up and then the tail would crash onto the concrete.
Right.
You make sure you push the right button first. And damned if I didn't, I wrote up every single person on the crew for that. And then I did it. And I was like, son of a bitch. And then I had to like do my own, like, you know, walk of shame into the office of games. And I forget who the full-time soup was. I was like, listen, I just pushed the wrong button and I crashed it. I was like, you got to write me up. He's like, no, I'm not going to write you up. I was like, you have to write me up. I've written up everyone on my crew. You've got to do this. I can't do it myself. You've got to do it for me. But he did. He's like, yeah, I'll write you up. Go away. I was like, son of a bitch. He's not going to write me up.
That's funny.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I actually remember running a break there once. So I had to come in and run a break for the simulators, and I smacked that motherfucker right on the floor. I didn't write myself up. I don't know what the hell you were thinking. I was just like, hello.
Yeah, no, that owner hated me.
Oh yeah.
We called him in because I said, you know, I was letting Denise know, like, this ride's not safe. I was like, it's gonna hurt somebody. It's not safe. He's like, no, it's fine. I was like, I'm telling you now, I can compact this ride into the ground. He's like, no, it won't. I'm like, you sure? He's like, go ahead. I do it, and he gets pissed at me. After that, I mean, it was like a good 2 feet of crush. It was amazing. I still can see it today. That's how wonderful it was. I mean, it just kept going, and he started yelling. I was like, well, you told me to do it. I was like, what do you expect? I told you it was going to happen. You didn't believe me.
That's what happens when you go with the lowest bidder.
You know what's funny? I completely forgot about this until you just said about the owner. But one of the things I did that season was I wrote the tests and the manual for Max Flight. And that's only because I had written the tests and the manuals for all the rides when I was doing it with Kathy Basner, back when I was a rides, soup. And I remember, I absolutely forgot about this. I remember that guy wanting to remove like all the things. And I'm off memory here, but if I'm remembering right, he was pissed at me for all the safety stuff. He's like, that doesn't apply. That doesn't apply. That doesn't apply. And I was like, you kind of have to have that in there. Nope.
Did he tell you that he used to fly jets? He just kept saying,
I think he did. Yeah, I think he did.
I was like, well, great, but this is still a mess.
It doesn't matter.
That's wonderful. I'm trying, but I just compacted your coaster into the ground.
It's pretty funny. I forgot how much of a pain in the ass that guy was until you said it, though. That's funny.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah. Well, Andy, you dealt with contracts and licensing, right? Did you ever have to deal with that guy? Were you one of the people that brought him in or anything like that, or was he already there?
Yeah, I probably dealt with the contract for him. In fact, I remember we went, I don't know if you were with us that night, they had a big warehouse over in some industrial complex in Lakewood, and we had to go there and test ride all their stuff and everything. So
I think so. I think I was there.
But there were like every outside vendor. I never realized when we worked in operations how many outside companies were really operating in the park. And all we did was split the money with them. Like we didn't have to do anything. They'd come in, set up this whole thing themselves, and we'd just split part of the money with them. But these were lots of shady characters. I mean, guys who would run the thing their own way, and you had very little control over what they did. The guy running the laser tag. The
QZR. QZR was an outside vendor.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the cars, right? All the remotes, the remote cars,
the boats. Yeah.
Oh.
Even every single arcade machine.
All the arcade.
Now, was the hayride an outside vendor role, or did GA just go out and rent a bunch of tractors?
So,
what the hell?
No,
Did you do this?
the hayride was both. The hayride itself was run. The transport, the wagons, was run by us, which was ridiculous because none of us knew how to drive a fucking stick shift, and we're all doing it.
That's how I learned.
Yeah. But all the actors and the actual hayride, everything inside the show perspective was 4-Star Entertainment. So that was separate. And actually, the first year I got hired separately from the guy that ran 4-Star to do the mad scientist at the end. I created his head, and the guy hated it. The actor fucking hated it because I created it with 2 bladders that were hooked to syringes, like hidden inside of his like pant thing. And he just squeezed them, and it made it look like his head pulsed. And he was like, "I'm an actor. I don't do that." He just took the syringes out and tore them. So he ended up just having this big brain with a wig on it, and that they paid me to make. And I was like, whatever, I'm paid. I don't care. You know? But, yeah.
You don't want to pulse? Don't pulse.
Right, exactly. I was like, whatever. I don't give a shit. But yeah, but that was a mix. But to Andy's point, it wasn't all one department. It was a mix. You know, so
right. And like I said, they just threw us on tractors. Which, I mean, when I think back of all the stuff we would do, like, you know, basically now we were babies, we were little kids.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I was operating, you know, 3 trains in the rain on the mine train before I was even allowed to operate a car.
At like fucking 16. At like 16,
yeah.
man. And, yeah.
You know, and same thing, they teach you how to drive a stick. You're driving around the parking lot a little bit, and they're like, here you go, we're going to put 50, you know, brave souls on the back of this thing now, and take you. You can start driving them through this obstacle course of buildings and fences and rides.
With zombies coming around.
Yeah, no, I took the corner off the first aid building with that thing. I was so thankful I didn't take anybody's hands off. But yeah, Fright Fest was always pretty interesting.
Yeah, for the record, Chris really still can't drive sticks, so I don't. I'm terrified when I think about guests in the back.
But when he's on a tractor, he's badass.
I was gonna say, I'd love to say she's wrong, but I learned on a tractor, and it really didn't get much better from there. And I cannot believe they let me carry 40, 50 souls on the back of that tractor. They paid to get in and get on my tractor. I don't want to give it all up. There's so many great hayride stories for October, but they paid for that.
Andy, who else were outside contractors that you remember outside? So there was Qzar. I know that there was the Scooby-Doo water game that was in front of Big Wheel. That was like a fucking truck or whatever, right?
Oh yeah.
That was the Spiromania game. Was the water game? Really, were real popular that year. And, yeah, there was this company out of Florida.
They were loud as fuck. They were fun. I mean, I remember walking like past there and just seeing it and going, I want to walk over there. I don't even fucking know why. I don't want to Scooby-Doo, but I just want to walk over there. It just seems fun. Everyone's enjoying themselves, you know? So
yeah, and we would just pop them up like overnight. Overnight, all of a sudden we'd be set up in front of something, wherever the crowd was going, we'd move it there. And, they were, typically kind of like boardwalk kind of games, but we would try and theme them. The first year, I think they were kind of just generic, but then we went and purchased more things from, or released more games from them. Then we got to be more themed with the park, and
right.
No, they did real well. And I remember we got to make all kinds of sound clips, and this was at the time.
I remember that. That's right. I forgot about that.
AOL days, and people would just learn. Hey, I could go to this website and download all these different sound clips from movies and everything, and we would just give them a disc to the guys, and the guys would load them on there, and we got in trouble for a couple of those.
That's what I was going to say. We got in trouble for copyright infringement because we used other people's clips, right? I totally remember that now.
Yeah, and then there was one other that we never meant to be. We thought it was fun, but someone thought it was a little offensive, and they took that one off too. I'm not going to say what it was.
I remember.
Come on. Hear it.
But that was another big vendor.
Rockwall? Rockwall was a vendor.
Rockwall was a vendor too. You would send a games person over there to work
with the flight
like
simulators.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I think we also get the Sky Coaster, and then that other, I forget what it's called, that looping starship kind of copy thing. That was
I know you also. Yeah.
But that came right after I left.
And then they put that ladder thing in where you have to climb the ladder that flips you over.
Oh yeah, you had to hit the bell or something
Oh,
like
those-
that.
Yeah.
Whoa, hold on. That was there when I was a kid, right where Qzar was. That was always a fucking game right there.
Yeah.
So they brought it back?
They brought it back and it had it run completely by a vendor. Like no games person did money, nothing. It was all run by a vendor.
And
Accumulated-
still had no winners.
It
So
seems
fuck
like a
that.
cheap
Fuck that.
game to
I
put
won
up.
that thing as a kid. I won that
How
thing
did
as
you
a
win
kid.
that? Did you just like leap from the first rung
No,
straight like
no.
do like a flying squirrel?
The second you get on it, you have to hold the two sides like this, and then you have to just go straight. If you even imbalance a little bit, you're flipping. But if you literally just scoot like this, you could go all the way up without a problem.
I
And
gotta
it got
tell
to the point. God,
I was
Yeah,
one
Danny.
of the things that sucked when we went to games was all the other kids knew how to win all the games.
absolutely.
We were like a bunch of idiots. We couldn't do shit. We couldn't hit the plate with the ball or anything. Everyone else was
I
doing the
thought I
wacky
knew
wire and
I
tossing
will
it.
say, I might have the name wrong. There is another really cool. I want to say it was a red tag, Felicia. I want to say her name was in Game Square. Who actually, I think it was Felicia, right? Who was
Red hair?
actually
Mhm.
super fucking cool. Yes.
She was a soup later on. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. She
Okay, yes, that was her. Super
Yep.
cool. She walked me around for my first week and showed me how to beat every fucking game. Every fucking game. Like, this is how you beat, this is how you do that. I could only do maybe a 10th of them, even after she got done. I just did not have the skill to do like the fucking wire thing. She
Oh,
showed it
the
to me like
wires.
5 times seamlessly, and I was like, nah. You know?
Yeah, they showed me
Yeah,
the
to
wire so
practice.
many times. Yeah, I could not.
That's
do
what it was, yeah. Which,
Yeah,
I mean,
could not do it.
look, you guys already hated me. If I sat there for my 8-hour shift learning a fucking wire game, I don't think that would have been over too well, you know?
Old wired Hicks over there.
Earning his full-time pay. Whoa.
Wacky wire Hicks, another 8-hour day.
God damn it, that should have been my name. Shit. No, man. I should have sat at that wacky wire game. I wasn't thinking ahead, you know?
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's funny as shit, man. All right, well, wait a minute. There's something you guys talked about that you guys had mentioned pre us having this call that I just completely forgot about. What the fuck were the Square Olympics? What are the Square Olympics?
They were.
Oh.
That was good times. That was, hey, it's raining out. There's barely anybody in the park. There's nothing to do. It's time for Olympics. You just start at one side, right, Sam? Like
You start a wacky wire.
Right. You start at wacky wire. You work your way through every single game. Every single game.
Were there medals involved if you took first place? Did you get like the gold medal or?
Oh, no, I think it was mainly bragging rights,
It was
right?
bragging rights, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes
definitely.
there was like, I'll buy you a soda,
Yeah. I thought I knew games. I thought I knew games before I went to games. I didn't know shit. They died. I got
I would
dominated.
have come in dead last.
Yeah, dominated. Just dominated.
I mean, here's also the difference. Sam's like, we would do the whole entire Olympics, and then someone might buy you a soda. If you were in rides, we would take you to the fish feeders, give you $30 in quarters. I mean, big difference. You see why we were so cocky? We got paid to have fun, okay? You know?
Nice.
If you took one of them quarters in games, we fired your ass, sir. That was it. So actually, that's a good segue. Let's talk about firing people in games because I fired a lot of fucking people in rides, but nowhere near what I fired in my one fucking year in games. It was like
I fired
every
a lot
day.
of people for games. Yeah,
That's,
nothing like
that's when I lost my trust in humanity. You couldn't trust anybody.
It was a life-changing experience.
Right. There'd be somebody who'd come in early for you, stay late, go without a break. They'd hook you up. The fall, they'd still be coming in during the week for you. When you had like 8 employees actually show up, they'd be there for you every time. And then you find out that they've been stealing from you all summer long.
Yeah, I remember even training. I remember even training, talking to supervisors and managers and going, keep in mind that a lot of times your best employee is going to be your best thief. And that's such an awful way of thinking about things, but it was the case a lot of times.
Yeah.
Of course, not all of them, but yeah, they were smart. Like, I'm going to do a great job. I'm going to have a smile on my face. I'm going to be on the microphone getting people over here because there's more money coming in that way. And also, it's a good smoke screen. That
was actually my job. I think it was my 3rd season. It was when I first got promoted to supervisor. it was kind of a hybrid role. I was responsible for Frontier, which became the training center, because that was the year when all the new bills came out, where the $20 bills had big 20s and stuff. So we had to teach people, how to detect counterfeit bills, and then also teach them how to take money, give them change, and put the revenue in a box, a locked box. And so that, is where the stealing would come from. They just wouldn't put it in the box, they put it in their pocket. But then the other half was I worked in loss prevention. So it was kind of bizarre that I was hiring people knowing at least one or two of you right here, I'm going to fire for theft in a few months. All right. And we broke the record for games and these are just the ones that we caught who confessed, yes, I stole. It was either 84 or 87 people in one season.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll have to ask Matt.
Hey, it was not a big department, right? It wasn't like it was smaller than Rides as far as employees go. 84.
Yeah.
That's
the bad ratio.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's not including the volunteers and the temps.
Yeah, these were actual employees.
These are
Temp, they're sending us little criminals.
Temps, I took an entire bus, an entire group, and after they were there for 45 minutes, Denise said, we were like, yeah, it's not worth, just pull them all, ask them all to grab their stuff. We took their tills, we took the money, and I was like, you can all follow me, we're all going to take a walk up to the main gate. I'll explain when we get there. We walked them outside and said, your bus will be here at 5 o'clock. You're all done for the day. Thank you.
Wow.
And there was a range.
Someone with actual house arrest bracelet on at one time.
Yes. Yes.
Violating their parole by coming to temp work. A great adventure.
Yep.
I mean,
there's such a range. Like you're wearing your apron, your till. And you'd have people where they're supposed to have exactly $250 in their till, and it'd be made up of a lot of their quarters or Susan B. Anthony's, and bills. And you'd see money coming out of the tills. It'd be so false. It was so obvious. Either you're that stupid or you're stealing, And there were a lot of dumb people that just couldn't count. We had that too. But then there were people like Steve was saying, like people you would never guess, like the 15-year-old who stole it was $10,000 in quarters over 3 months. Skinny little kid, and you can't bring bags into the park. Remember, you had you had a little clear pouch. So I don't know where he hid all those rules of quarters in 3 months.
See, you should have promoted that kid and made him loss prevention.
We really should have. We should have
put him behind a camera.
I mean, I can honestly say,
and I know how it works.
Yeah, I can honestly say there were weeks where I swear to God I felt I spent more time with Ernie in investigations than I did with the fucking employees. I'm not even shitting you. I would walk in, be immediately have to go into investigations. Fucking Ernie be like, this guy did this, blah blah blah, and then we'd be firing him, and then. I'd go to leave, and then there's another one coming in, and I'm like, I guess I'll just stay here. And then it's 6 hours later, I get to walk out for 2 hours and do whatever the hell I'm supposed to do, and then I go home. It was stupid,
When you were firing those employees, did they ask for their union rep?
I don't remember ever having a games employee ask for a union rep. Rides, every motherfucker did, which you say I loved. I loved, man.
I love it. The rep would show up, and it was the rep would show up and go, so what's the thing? This, did you do it? Yes. Okay.
Wait.
That story, that one with the Jamaican dude.
No, oh my God. My last year in Rides, there was a Jamaican union rep in foods, and it didn't matter what department the union rep came from because it was all the same union. So they would just bring that union rep over, right? And I remember I was terminating someone, sure safety violation, 100% valid termination. I'm very proud that I've never fired anyone for a personal vendetta. It was always you fucking did this, why I'm firing you, and that's that, right? Yeah. And this Jamaican dude comes in, and the dude's like, I want a union rep. And I was like, you're completely entitled to that. And I bring it in, this Jamaican dude comes in, and he goes, when did you do this? You did this. Why am I here? Why am I here? Why are we wasting? You're wasting my time. And the dude's like, well, I mean, you're my union rep. He goes, well, what do you think that means? That doesn't mean I get you out of this. You did this. Did you do it? And the kid's like, well, yeah. And he goes, okay, sign. And the kid's like, I'm not going to sign. And he goes, you don't have to sign. I'm your union rep. You're still getting fired. It's so great. Just watch this Jamaican guy just go off on this kid. And I was like, that's your union rep. You feel good? You feel good? All right, let me walk you out.
I mean, that was so like, well, I forget what it was. It was like $4 or $6 that you paid a week.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
Oh yeah.
And
oh man.
One of the biggest things about becoming a supervisor was you're no longer in the union.
In the union.
That was like a raise in and of itself.
Yeah.
It was.
An hour raise rate for that.
That was probably the best raise we got when we became a supervisor. That union fee.
Yeah, it wasn't that much of a bump.
No, it really wasn't. That's funny. So, one of the other things, so we're talking about theft. Well, this isn't actually theft, but wasn't there a family you guys had told me about that was really famous for, while we're talking about people that know how to beat the games, what was the rule with the games? Like, if you got, so we all know there were certain people like Felicia that could just go in there and beat that game like every single time. So how did we prevent that? Like, what was our rule in that?
These people would drive you crazy. You know, first of all, as soon as somebody spotted them, like an all bulletin went out over the radio, and now someone was basically following them, watching around, you know, where they would go all day, because it was this cat and mouse game we played all day long, where they would push the rules to limit, you know, and they knew all the rules. They knew all the rules, all the laws, everything.
And this was a family, right? This was a whole family that knew how to beat the games.
It was a very organized group.
It was an organized crime family.
The place out of prizes. Big prizes.
The Tweedies.
A name we can refer to them as. What's a good name we can call them?
We had a couple.
Gang of jammies.
Yeah, I had the Ram Scammies.
Even beyond that, like they would complain to the state, like you know, you had to have like the foul lines, you know, the line you can't reach over, pass, you would toss something. You know, if it was just, you know, maybe a scratch on it, it wasn't completely painted, you know, we'd get letters from them about that, and they would come with tape measures and try and measure things, and they were really crazy. But they cleaned us out for quite a lot of inventory every week, and then they would take them and sell them at the English Town auction.
Sell them in the parking lot. They made a fortune.
But I used to come out and talk to the father and just be like, you know, just small talk and everything, and they would win their prizes. And go ahead, walk them through the park. Go
Meanwhile,
ahead.
his kids are picking your pockets while you're
exactly. My watch show.
No, I mean, most of us knew them on a first-name basis.
Yeah, oh yeah. I remember the team
it was just this game
being a little more brash. Like I remember them. I remember one of them at times had like an arm where he was reaching over the thing with one of the rings at the ring toss, and he's like, "Well, it doesn't say on the sign I can't do this," and it's like, "Get out of here!" You know what I mean? You're not, come on, like, it doesn't say a lot of things.
So how did they get so good? Do they have like these games at home that they practiced, and then they would just?
I heard they did. Yeah, I heard they had their own wacky wires at home. Yeah,
which were really expensive, if I remember correctly. Like I want to say something like $10,000 each or $7,500.
Really? Because I saw those wacky wires. They didn't look like a $10,000.
No, it was a licensing thing. Like they were.
Oh yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, no, I don't want to disrespect my people or Andy's, but they were like the gaming mafia. It was very organized. Very organized. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, like, and we would do the same kind of thing. We just wouldn't do it as regularly. We'd go to Hershey, you know, and you'd see all the Hershey Games people on their radios because they're like, "Oh God, Great Adventures here! Like, they're going to clean us out." And every time we would end up just giving away prizes because we'd forget we can't get them all in the car. Like,
well, now the best Sam is Matt and Andy. You know, so games, you'd have the prizes up, right? And those large prizes would sometimes be scarce. Like there may only be one big blue dragon, you know? So what they would do is one of them would win and then the other one would win. One would win and go, "I want the blue dragon." And then a second later, and it would be the last one, and nobody ever wanted to give the last one up. And I think it was Matt that was like, "Well, you better figure something out quick because I'm about to win. I want to win." They were real ball busters. I used to cry laughing. I was like, as long as you follow the rules, I don't care at all. I was like, because it's hysterical. I was like, it's so funny. Man.
And if you went to the boardwalk and you went to the Wacky Wire game, they had a display of all the winners. They would take Polaroids of them, and it was pretty much 85% GA game
GA employees.
And the same people over and over again with different outfits on different days.
They took me to the boardwalk one time to show me. They're like, look at everybody. They were all some of them were even wearing the green shirts, I feel like. I was like, that's ridiculous. So ridiculous.
Well, that's probably a great segue, because that's not the only shit we stole from other parks. I feel like we went on a lot of trips as full-timers and went to Seaside, went to Point Pleasant, went to Jenks, and we were like, oh, that's how you set your display up. And then next year, Six Flags looked amazingly similar. You guys remember doing those trips? Andy, I know you do.
Yeah, Steve, remember we'd go down and we'd have to just start taking pictures of everything. And before you know, like, strange guys were coming out of the back, like, trying to see what we were doing all the time. And we were trying to measure stuff, just like those other people would do to us to steal. We were basically just stealing the game concepts.
Exactly. And it's hysterical. Think about it. We're like a multi-billion-dollar park, and we're going to Jenkinson's Pier. We're like, that's pretty good. We're going to do that.
Hey, I bet my wife
They hated
Jenkinson's.
us.
Come on.
They hated us because we could buy the prizes for so cheap.
That's
we
true.
would do huge group buys across all the parks in the whole country.
Yeah.
I remember we had to go there once for this meeting regarding the cranes and these new laws they were going to change on the crane games, and walked into this room above Jenkinson's, this like smoky conference room, with all these old men. These are people running the boardwalk for the kids and everything. I felt very intimidated by some of these guys. Guys had been like, Maury was there.
Right.
Maury's here. Right.
Oh my
And I was just this
God.
little kid walking in, basically,
Hey, there's Lucky Leo.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was like. Be like Leo and Maury.
Oh my God. That's so great.
Oh, the cranes were great. Sorry, it's bringing back memories. So we used to call them triple cranes because there were 3 in like a machine. And behind them in the boardwalk square was an office. And so, we used a lot of fishing line to hang up prizes. And so one day someone came up with this brilliant idea to kill time of tying a fishing line to a triple crane prize and throwing it out in the middle of the square and waiting for some poor kid to go, oh, look, little Tweety. And then we pull on it right before he could get to it. And we would string that thing all the way across, and you'd see the kid running after it.
That's so fucked up. That's so wrong.
But it was
so
funny.
wrong.
So did you let him get the toy eventually, or did
No.
you totally?
That would have been theft.
That would have been that.
That's right.
Sorry for that.
So he doesn't get the Tweety, and then he loses his parents and spends half a day in lost parents, and he's
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. Oh, by the way, I'm going to point out, anybody else have one of these? I'm wearing an all-star name tag, which is my favorite name tag ever. Now, this was given to me because I was an all-star the week ending July 19th, 1987. I'm not going to lie. My life has been downhill since that week, okay? But that week, I was a fucking all-star. All right? Just for that week.
I believe that all-star program must have ended before I started in 1990 because...
No. It ended when they hired you because they knew. It's just, don't even bother. Just, he's never getting it. Just put it away, all right?
That's
It's
when
pretty
it was
much
transitioned over to Bugs
No,
Bucks.
Different.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Bugs Bucks, man. So I know on our Facebook page, I had a fresh mint Bugs Bug from 96 and from 97. I don't even know if they had them past that year after I left. They probably did. I'm not sure. But it's funny because the 96 one, it's just a Bugs Bug. You fill it out, you hand it to them, and then they do whatever they do with it. 97, we must have been going crazy with those fuckers because they were carbon copied. And we had to keep our carbon copies. So shit must have went bad in 96 and I don't remember.
I blocked out a lot of it.
Well, this is the fucked up thing. So when I posted them, it's funny, like Sabrina Benton mentioned how like she hated them because employees would be like, "Oh, there's a supervisor," and they pick up the trash, and you wouldn't give them a Bugs Buck. So the second you walk by, they went, threw it back down on the fucking ground, like, "No fucking Bugs Buck. Oh, pick up that trash," like, "Fuck you,"
Throw it at you.
And that's funny because I did hear that shit.
You'd ask someone to do like something so
That's it.
be like, I need you to go down the hatch under the log flume station, in like a foot of water, and clean the shit out, and here's a Bugs Buck.
Here's a Bugs Buck.
So, like,
I mean,
go into the
I did the same thing.
Tower and clean all that bird crap out of there and everything.
You're right.
People probably got bird flu back then. Here's a Bugs Buck.
Yeah, it was all about the bribery. It was like, you're supposed to be doing this job anyway, but so you don't complain when I tell you to do it. It's 1,000 or 100 Bugs Bucks. Go, don't bother me.
But the funny thing is, I didn't even remember, like, when I found those and I posted them, I remembered giving them out, and I don't remember what the fuck you got for them. And Scott, you said you knew someone that won a car?
So for anybody who doesn't believe that car, the first year of the Bugs Bucks, I believe it was like a Geo Tracker or something. So Mike DiGregorio's cousin actually put in Bugs Bucks to get into the drawing for that car, and she won it. So
holy shit!
I do remember they would do raffles for prizes.
Yeah. She actually just
strategy.
Yep.
There was a strategy to that. So they would have all these different prizes you could win in a paper bag in front of it. And you put a Bugs Buck, you put all of them in one, or you could spread them out. And so like what people didn't realize was they didn't empty them out every day. So you go at the very last minute and you look in the bag to see which ones are almost empty. And you put your Bugs Bucks in those. So I used to clean up.
Fucking Bugs Bucks, man. Bugs Bucks, I have here. I'll tell you a story that I'm not proud of. I took pride in not being vindictive or being like an asshole at the park, like as a supervisor, and like trying to be pretty fair about everything. But the 96, I was dating somebody who was in rides, and we broke up over that winter. But she thought we were going to get back together when she came home from college. And I was not happy with her, and I did not. I didn't even reach out to her when she came home. I didn't even talk to her. So she kind of knew something was up. So she did not come back to rides. She went to a different apartment. And beginning of that season, when they handed out the Bugs Bucks, I was covering 140. So I was walking from the big wheel over toward the fountain, and she was working in that cookie stand that was right next to the Flying Wave. And as I'm walking, I see her, and I see a kid drop his cookie and start crying. And she immediately like gets a new cookie out and hands it out and everything. And I'm like, oh, this is going to piss her off. And I walk over and I'm like, you did a good job. Here's a Bugs Buck. Enjoy. And I hand it to her. The look on her face, if she could have shot a laser beam at her hot eyes, my head would have exploded, I'm sure that's the only Bugs Buck that did not go into the raffle. I'm sure it got burnt the second I walked away behind the stand, But I was like, it was so fucking funny because in my head, I'm like, wow, I could turn this into a weapon. This is a Bugs Buck. I can make this a weapon. Such a douchebag move. I immediately remembered it when I found the Bugs Bucks. I was like, wow, that's one of the only douchey things I remember doing at the park. That was not nice, man. That's not nice.
I wish they still had Bugs Bucks when I worked in Frontier, because I noticed one game that was not featured in the opening commercial was Frog Bog. I don't know.
I love Frog Bog. I love me some Frog Bog.
Frog Bog. The hammer and the little frog try to get in the thing. That was the worst game to work in the park, particularly when it was cold, because every time a frog water, you got wet, you got soaked, and the water was absolutely disgusting.
Well, Sam, have you ever worked at any? Well, obviously you haven't, but any water ride at Great Adventure?
Yeah.
All of them pretty much fit that category.
If you add feces and fecal matter and other stuff into Frog Bog, that's like working Adventure Rivers. Okay,
Movie Town Water Effect. People use that bridge for a shower. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And the worst was you see like guests like at Congo Rapids. It was like basically swamp water. I mean, it was so disgusting. Swamp water mixed with sweat, maybe, is like how you would say it. Like you would see like snakes and turtles and frogs swimming through that water, and then you'd see people at the end of the ride where like the fire hoses spray the boats one side or the other. They're sitting there like, and it's like swinging, and you see them spitting the water out, and it's like, oh my god, like you're gonna die of freaking typhoid fever next week. You won't be able to pin it on us because it'll be too late.
Wait, Scott, don't you have a story about a flume lead?
I do, but that ties into investigations. So, but before I go into that one, I'd like to give a shout out to Pete Lottie Dottie, because he was the only person I know who actually screamed like a little girl down at the point of Congo Rapids while he was working there, because a snake decided to curl up onto the dock where you had to stand and sun itself because it was, it was cold. The snakes wanted to get some sun. So it's chilling. It's having a good old time. Pete turns around, sees this, it was a pretty big snake, I have to say, but he screams. I swear you could hear it up in the station. He screams so loud, and he runs away. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you left the point. Like, you can't leave point. Get back down there.
Wait. I'm going to defend Pete, because I think your wife told us that you once woke up screaming like a little girl, screaming Pete's name.
I did.
I believe that's a story that I once heard.
That is a true story. And it wasn't a dream. It was a nightmare.
Oh, I'm sure it's a nightmare. You want Pete?
Anybody who had to like be Pete's lead knows he was the biggest scammer of them all. And that fucker, he would always try to jam the ride by dispatching boats. And I believe we talked about that last show, but you had to watch him like a hawk. If you turn your back on him for 5 seconds, he'd be doing something to break the ride or make a flush happen or something. So I'm so traumatized to this day that I still have dreams trying to stop him from doing shit to like break the ride. So I was yelling at him because he was trying to jam the ride in my dream. So,
I mean, let's be honest.
That's not some pretty either I'm not talking about here. That was literal trying to jam the Rapids ride, not anything else, not any orifice or anything.
I felt like we had a lot of kids who were too smart for their own good working on that Rapids ride.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
Everybody working on it couldn't wait for it to break down.
For it to fucking break down. Everyone was trying to jam the damn thing.
Well, I mean, I love flushes. Like,
and I get there sometimes and they'd be skipping. Like they were so happy that it was dead.
Oh, fuck yeah. Because they thought they did it. They were like, oh, it's going to happen. It's going to,
yeah. I mean, I love to have a flush. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was like Christmas when a flush happened because, everybody's running and doing stuff. But I would never do it on purpose. There were people who would try to do it on purpose, which I was not on board with. So,
well, I mean, to Andy's point, though, almost everybody that worked that ride that, knew how to actually operate was trying to jam it. And yet you only screamed Pete's name out in your sleep. So I'm just going to leave it at that. We'll move on. But we just established that. Yeah, he's clearly your favorite, Scott.
So anyway, I'm not going to take it any further. So
what was your story about the hydroflume?
Oh, so I don't remember this kid's name. The lead that we had the year that you, me, and Gary supervised, I think.
Yeah.
So I forget the kid's name, but he was a good employee. He followed the rules. He had the ride running straight, like no problems, no nothing. But like that next season, after you, me, and Gary all left that section,
right?
Like. And I think it was Kathy and I forget who else took over the section. Like,
yeah,
the kid went to the dark side. I don't know what happened, but like he was down. He wound up in loss prevention, and he was getting like the 3rd degree underneath the hot lights and everything, or something. And Kathy was telling me that he was like, while he was getting interrogated, the interrogator said that he was like, telling him that they were turning him on, and he was getting on. And yeah, he was. I wish I remember his name, but I remember.
Based on the story you're telling right now, I don't want his name out there right now. But wait, did he get fired?
Yeah, they fired him.
I fuck me. Would you fuck me?
He was like, you guys promoted him, and what kind of people are you promoting? And I remember you were there when she was telling us, and you were like, he wasn't like that with us. Obviously, it has something to do with the supervisor. So.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about right now, and he was not. He was actually really good.
Yeah.
It loads the boats, and it does this when it's told.
It uses the lotion when it unloads the boats.
Fucking boats.
Great.
There was some shady stuff that went down at that hydroflume Riptide, I have to say, but you know, that was where the used condom came in on the water ride.
Ooh.
The baby flume. Let me tell you, I'm gonna be quite honest. If you fucked on that ride from beginning to end, you're like a 1 minute chump because that ride was fast. You went up, you went down. That was it. I mean, yeah. At least the log flume you had about 2 minutes. You know.
I don't know the story. All I know is that the fiberglass guy had the thing come down and land on his wrist.
Wait.
Was pretty pissed off after it happened.
Scott, Pat, and Dougie. That's their names, Pat and Dougie.
Yeah.
I finally remembered their fucking names.
But there was the third dude who was the crazy one. The third dude who like Pat and Dougie were like the chill ones, and the third guy.
Well, I forget his name. Andy, you remember his name? Without saying his last name, who was the lead of Fiberglass? The big fucking Jack Schwarzenegger arms, who was cool as shit. He was awesome.
No, but he was fine too.
I can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name. You know what I'm talking about? His arms looked like he could lift a fucking tree. I was like, holy shit.
Now there was another guy who they must not have let out too much because he was like right on the edge. Like he was like a guy who came back from Nam.
Oh yeah, that was the dude they left. He always stayed in the back in the shop though. They never brought him out.
When he came out, there were always problems. Like he was the one who was like almost he wanted to kill like Andy when he started the ride and he fell on the belt.
I remember that.
The one who was harassing that same kid who he made the lead of the hydroflume.
Yeah.
He bought like some kind of truck from like the surplus sale at GA, and like it was like a plumbing truck, and that other guy wanted it, and he was like harassing him at the ride. Remember?
I started to. Yeah, I started to.
So, I don't remember the dude's name, but he was just like one like hair away from losing it and going nuts. So
that's funny.
But yeah, like I forget which fiberglass guy it was, but he was so pissed. He came up to me. He's like screaming. He's like, "God damn it!" He's like, "I reached back to clean the flapper out of the back of the boat, and this used condom lands across my wrist." I was like, dude, that is some nasty stuff. That I'm not gonna lie, that's like the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. But
that is funny as hell.
I know we cleaned some pretty interesting things out of the cable cars.
Oh yeah. Well, cables for sure. You had plenty of time on the cables. Yeah, you had plenty of time.
Cables was only like a 5 or a 6 minute ride too, though. Like,
yeah, but people consider that like the Mile High Club. I mean, literally, they did. You know,
because I remember when I was on the west side for some reason, and I was loading.
Because you decided to go over to luxury and not be a chump. That's why. Yeah, we know. We know.
Maybe I just thought that the light curtain sounded so cool. I wanted to go and dance in it or something. I don't know. But I remember
we don't like killing squirrels. Okay, we're nice. All right.
Okay. But this really super cute chick came up to me and she's like, "How long is the ride?" And I was like, "Oh, it's about 5 minutes." And she turns to her boyfriend or whatever, and she's like, "I don't know if we'll have time." And he's like, "Oh yeah, we will." He's like, "Get in there." Like, they hopped in the car and they were gone. I was like, "Good for you."
Yeah, he's like, "I have time. I don't know about you, but that's plenty for me."
It's all about me. That's all. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. It's fucking great.
Nice.
Well, while we got Andy on, Chris, did you have a story about a Viper breakdown that you wanted to tell?
Oh, it was actually the night before the park opened. Work crew, and that's a long day, and you see a lot of crazy shit. I think it was the same year that they were putting in the fountain. There were like 30-foot mounds of dirt that we drove past. I want to say hours before we were opening. I don't know how they got it out.
Oh yeah, that was a last-minute season.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. But like around 5, 6 o'clock, it was starting to get a little dark. It was still light out. We were going to run the Viper. We had to run the Viper in order to, get it ready to go and make sure it was cool. I think Ken sent it around, and it was moving real slow because it was cold. And we're looking at it. and we're going, I don't know if it's going to make it. It gets to the corkscrew. It's like, I don't think it's going to make it. And Ken's like, yeah, it'll make it. I don't know, man. And it got to that corkscrew, and it went in, and then went like this. And then I heard a lot of curses.
1 in a million shot.
Exactly. Andy and I remember, Andy, your face was exactly like you did just there. We were just like, holy shit. Like, because what are you going to do? Like, we didn't do anything wrong. Like, what the hell are you going to do? But,
and we waited. We're like, I mean, it's empty. Keep in mind, there's nobody on.
Of course.
You know, the last week of work crew was great because all we did was run the rides all day long, empty.
Right.
And,
But you had to load them, right? Or lead shot, or was this after lead shot testing?
This is after.
This was a newer ride. This wasn't like the mine train where you had, or the coaster that needed lead shot when it was cold. This was supposed to be fine, or so we thought. It's just staring at it like it's got to go forward or come backwards. But I don't think you could do that in a million years if you tried again.
Exactly. It was a 1 in a million shot, and I just remember them after we finally. I think Kenny did a lot of cursing, because he was in charge of work crew that year, and it's like we got to get everything done. Everything's going. He's got all the pressure to make sure it's all done, and then that hit like around 5-6 o'clock, and after we notified everyone,
Everyone
shut
came
down
out
the
for that.
entire whole side of the park. Wasn't even open, but still, it was like an evacuation for people that weren't paid customers, just workers. Everybody out. They shut down the entire side of the park. They
They were going to bring
there.
the crane. They were going to bring the crane into all this stuff. And then I don't remember which mechanic it was, but all I remember is this dude just free climbed, 100 feet in the air on this loop where the train could have rolled towards him and crushed him, but we're all the way to the top, pushed it right over. And it made it back, and that was it. We opened it.
And you were putting guests on the next day, right?
Done and done. It's like, holy shit.
Like it never happened.
Wasn't that the ride that we only purchased a portion of? We didn't purchase the whole ride because it didn't fit?
Yes. We bought the I guess the economy version of it. And,
I have news for you, Sam. About half of the rides in the last 20 years are the economy versions, and there's other parks at the real version. Yeah. Like I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Skull Mountain's an economy version too, right? Skull Mountain's a mini version of what the original ride was, right?
Probably. I'm
almost positive of that.
Who advertises 3 horizontal loops? What the hell's a horizontal loop? Oh, it goes around in a circle. I was like, all right.
Well, in the old days, we called it a corkscrew at the mine train, but not anymore. Now it's a horizontal loop.
Horizontal loops.
The last time they went all out was Batman the Ride. It was those special uniforms they bought for you guys.
Flashy tux.
Clearly, they didn't make their money back on that, which is why they had to skip on everything.
Very formal.
Very formal, very formal. But and rides did cost more money sometimes if they weren't built properly. I think. I thought there was a story there. We're not
Sam,
sure.
Why are you making a face, Sam?
There's no proof, but
come to Jesus. Here it is. Time to come clean.
God. So to get from the square back to the backstage employee area, it was a huge shortcut to cut through the back area, then have to go all the way up and around like where the fountain was and stuff. And for decades that was the route back. And it's late, it's dark, you're tired, and yes, we were told don't take that shortcut because they're building the Daredevil Dive Sky Coaster there. But we're games people. We don't listen. Some would call us misfits. But and so they even took down the spotlights so you could see to try to discourage us, but obviously that didn't work. And so one night, we're walking back and I just trip and fall right on my ass, and everyone's like, Sam, what happened? And I'm looking around, I can't see much, but I see this stake attached to a rope, and I'm like, I don't know, I just tripped over this rope, and I just, God damn it, and I stuck it back in the ground. I got up and you brushed myself off, and we walked back, and a couple of weeks later, I remember I'm walking in for my shift, and I'm looking up, and they're building from the bottom up, and it's an arch that, is what the rope's going to hang from, that the people are on. It's supposed to be an arch. It's supposed to meet in the middle. And I'm looking up and I'm like, how many arches are there? Because I don't think they're going to connect. But I was so scared. I like, as I'm sure anyone listening to this can tell, I'm not a quiet person. But I was so scared. I think I was like almost mute for like 3 weeks because they kept building and it was so obvious. It was like it wasn't going to meet. And I think it was $1.3 million later. They had to take it down and start over. And
hope was a strategy. It's gonna meet. And right tomorrow, there's going to be some engineer whose career went down the toilet after that.
Exactly.
He's like, son of a bitch, I knew it wasn't there.
Look at the blueprints. They don't match.
Yeah, I mean, they had dozens of ropes with flags all measured out, which is one of the ones that you must have tripped over. That being said, though, the whole time they're building it, you're looking at it. I didn't even know Sam at the time, know the other story, but you're looking at it and going, that doesn't look like it's gonna meet.
Yeah.
Like Scott said, they kept going. You know, what I mean? Like it's gonna
like
happen.
4 days.
They were like
more than that. I thought it was a couple weeks.
It's right here. Look at the math.
They're like, I'm telling you, I measured it 3 times when I staked it out.
Exactly. It was perfect. We went home. We came back. We poured the concrete. I don't know.
Oh my
I
God, that's great.
It was like a big secret. Like only like 5 or 6 people knew for like a year. And then, during the off season and work crew, Chris, myself, and the supervisor, Bill Hardiford, driving around. And Bill's like, oh, we remember Sky goes, so that's Sam's fault, right? And I remember I'm in the back seat of the truck, the 2 of them in the front, and I'm sinking down. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get fired, sued, prosecuted. Like I didn't know Chris that well because it was early on in his career in games.
I don't care if you tripped over 10 lines. There was no reason they should have kept building that stupid thing. It was obvious to all of us it was not going to meet in the middle. If I pulled them all out, they still should have just. What were they thinking? It never looked like it was going to meet, and they just kept on going.
Yep.
That's exactly what I think I said. I think I said if I tripped over 10 of those lines, that is not an excuse.
That's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, folks, a couple times in this podcast, we made allusions to how great the West is, and Scott doesn't like that, but we all know it's true, so it doesn't really matter. And, it brings up, though, there's always been, and I truly believe it started with cables, because it's always been like East Side cables, Dream Street cables versus West Side cables. From the time that me and Andy started as Black Tags, it's always been like a cables war that felt like it expanded to like one side of the park, East versus West Side war. And, at the end of the day, we all know that West is best, but Scott just keeps on fucking disputing it. I don't know why. It's just silly. But I feel like this is a perfect opportunity because Chris, you've always been an East Side boy for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
Scott, for whatever reason, is like put his stake in the ground over there while we're talking about steaks. Just like Sam, though, we know it's a wrong steak, but we're not going to go there, okay? And Andy and me are clearly much smarter than you, Scott, because we know West is best. But I'm going to throw a challenge out. So Andy and me will team up. And on a future podcast, we're going to bring 2 guests on. And we're not going to shit all over Dream Street. We're not going to go in that route because, honestly, you could just look at your Fairy Forest outfits and your movie effect outfits, and it's already doing it for itself. We don't even need to do it, okay?
I'm not going to argue that point,
Yeah. What we're going to do is I'm sorry, Fantasy Forest. I always call it Fairy Forest, but it's Fantasy Forest, okay?
Yeah, with the politically correct time, Steve. Come on. Yes.
No, it's not that. Just because it was the colors. This color scheme has nothing to do with that. So you're the un-PC person right now, okay? Not me. So
I am.
Me and Andy, you definitely are. Me and Andy are going to bring on 2 guests, and all we're going to explain is why West is best. That's all we're going to do. We're going to explain. It's going to be like a court case. We're going to explain why West is best, and you guys will be on. You guys will listen to it, okay? And then the very next podcast, you guys can team up and bring on 2 guests, and you guys can explain why Dream Street is. It doesn't even rhyme. I don't know. Whatever you want to call it. Dream Street's better. I don't know. It's stupid. It doesn't even rhyme. West is best. Fuck you. Okay. But anyway, you get the challenge. All right.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, it occurs to me, actually it did before we just got on, that, I mean, I have no point of reference. I've never worked on the West Side, so I can't really, but I'll take your challenge. I'll pick up.
And that's why we're not going to try to shit on the other side, because that's not fair. We're just going to say why we think our side is best. You constantly keep saying Dream Street's better, so why? I mean, you got to point it out. It's got to be more than West End Light Curtain. Ooh, like,
yeah, okay.
Got to be more, you know?
Right.
Yeah, no problem. I'm down with it. I'm ready. All right, let's do this, Chris.
Oh yeah. No, I'll check in maybe with Neil. I mean, I think 1050 kind of always speaks for itself. But you know, if you want information, you want backup, you know, some sort of justification, you know, we'll do that then, Scott. You know, 1050, 1060. You know.
Yeah, let's do it.
I think there's enough there.
All right. We'll skip over, with the exception of the Dream Street cables, we'll skip over 140 altogether. But you know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Andy,
I was like,
Andy.
I asked that last time. I was like, can't we just skip it?
Yeah.
Andy, I feel like we already won. They're cutting sections of the East out. I feel like we already won.
We've all seen that
The biggest
uniform.
part of
There's
that
no
side of the
defense.
park.
Yeah, it's kind of a neutral zone.
Yeah.
You
There's no
know?
defending the uniform in Fantasy Forest, man. It was bad. It was just bad.
You know, your permanent carnival you had going on there.
Yep.
Exactly.
I love it.
Nice.
All right. Well, then the challenge is accepted. Andy, my partner. Once again, we're going to team up after like 30 years and show why West is best, just like we always did. I mean, it's just so simple, you know? All right, folks. I cannot believe this, but our time is already about to wrap up. So we're in close down mode. Once again, absolutely awesome catching up with everybody. You know, I hope COVID ends soon and we can go to a quicker pace instead of one a month. But for right now, we'll keep moving forward with one a month. You know, it's always good to have some time to talk with you guys, especially we have a little bit more of a games focus on this episode. But I think, you know, that I've always been interested in the game side of our invasion. So I love having you on, Sam, you know.
It was fun.
Excellent. So we will sign off for now. And I am Steve Hicks. My co-hosts are
Scott Loudon
and
Peluso.
And Sam Peluso. And Andy Auletti. All right, folks. Until next time, as always, make it a great day. Thanks, guys. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Bye, guys.